Okay, so welcome back, and on this one we are gonna be working with the OB-XA. We're gonna make some sounds. We're gonna make a bass, some pads, some arps, and some ambient kind of a vibe. So yeah, we're gonna use this just to create all of this and kind of make a track or an idea. We are not, of course, gonna make a track because this requires a lot of sounds, so a lot of samples, and just the arrangement and the compression and the reverb and then everything else. We are not gonna do that. We are just gonna make the patches. That's what we're gonna do, because this is the continuation of a series of videos where I teach you how to use the whole synth. Right? We do a complete walkthrough through the whole, all the knobs, all the settings, and everything else. So, of course, if you missed that series, notice that you are now on a playlist, or this video, it's on a playlist. So check the playlist, because maybe you want to learn how to use it and you have no idea. I'm going to teach you there, and then you can come back here and we can build some sounds together. All right, so let me just show you what I got right here. This is the sound. It sounds like crap, because all the patches are using the same thing, which is the default patch. And maybe you know me from other series and you know how this goes. We're going to go one by one and we're going to do something. So I'm going to go and do a bass right now. So I'm going to go right there and notice that we are on the default patch. So yeah, okay. So we're going to, again, start building some sounds. So first of all, we just need to create a bass. If I go right here and just play this alone, it doesn't work, right? Now notice that we have only 16 notes, and what we are doing is just fairly simple. Just fairly simple. So you can see the the notes. Okay, so of course I'm using a construction kit from some library. I'm gonna put the link so you can maybe take a look at that library, that construction kit. It's very good. It's just very good. It has very good ideas. So okay, so let's go back. All right, so the sound is gonna be this. Maybe this is not what we want, of course. So what we can do, we can make it a saw, but we can make a blend of everything we have right here by turning both on. And I'm going to go and do the oscillator too as well. And I'm going to go to the frequency and I'm going to make it 16. So instantly will sound more bassy. Of course, it's pretty messy, so we're going to need to fix this. I'm going to leave this one on right here on saw. And I'm going to go and do the pulse width of this square. So now it's going to sound a little bit different. Right, but still, not quite there yet. So I'm gonna go and do the filter, because the problem right now is that we have a million frequencies and everything sounds the same. Right, so I'm gonna go right here and start chopping. I'm gonna go to the frequency, gonna chop it right there. I'm gonna maybe do a little bit of resonance, and this is the modulation, right? So this is how much of the envelope we're gonna use to modulate the frequency. We know this. So I'm not gonna, explain how to do this. I'm just gonna go and do this. I'm gonna do a little bit of attack. I'm gonna not go to a full, long sustain, because if we do a lot of sustain, all the notes are just kind of staying up there. So what we want is movement, and now we instantly get something much better. No release in this case, maybe a little bit more sustain, and okay. So of course we need to do something maybe about the envelope, the amp envelope. Now that much sustain and maybe no release and just a very super short attack. And we can hear that it's starting to sound like a like a bass. Now of course, if you go up on the frequency, you're gonna start getting more of the aggression of the bass and not the super lows. Okay. So if you ask me, this sounds good. Now it could sound better. I'm gonna go and do Unison, and now we instantly get a very different sound, just very different sound. Now we have a lot of Unison voices. I'm gonna go and just make it, I don't know, 4. 4 seems a little bit better. So it's not super, super massive. 8 sounds massive. I'm gonna do just 4. Now of course, since we have many voices, we can do a little bit of detune. But now notice that the sound is just bigger, and we get a kind of a bass sound. And if I go to stereo, I'm going to do a little bit of spread, and again goes bigger. And if you think about this is kind of the whole bass. We just don't need to do much. So what I can do, maybe I just gonna go to the advanced section and do a little bit of overdrive. I'm gonna go there, Gonna remove this one. I'm gonna remove this one. We are not gonna need it. And just add a little bit of overdrive, just a little bit of saturation. All right. I think it's fine. Of course, we can do a lot of things right here. Now, of course, now the bass is, again, we need some movement, maybe a little bit of resonance, and I'm gonna do a little bit less of the frequencies. So as I do this, we're gonna get more of that transient peak, which is what we want maybe right here. And if we go less decay, it becomes a little bit silent because we are not doing a lot of high frequencies, but we can really hear the bass, you know? The fundamental note. If you want a little bit more grid, go up on the decay. Okay, there's one part missing because right now we need to. And now, you know, it sounds good. Now, of course, we need a little bit of side chaining so we can duck the sound and get that, you know, that vibe. So I'm always gonna use for now because it's easy. I'm gonna use the kickstart. I much prefer to use the compressor to get that movement of the bass. Notice we get it right there. And of course you can go not do it that aggressive, you know, just, but I believe that is fine. Super synth wave. There we go. So I really love the OB-XA for bass and pads. I think this thing is just fantastic for bass and pads. I wouldn't, you know, say the same thing for maybe ARPs that we're gonna see in a few seconds. I will use something else for ARPs and maybe drones. This is just a fantastic synth for drones. Okay, you know, we got the bass, so let's move on to the next thing, which is gonna be the pads. And if I do play, and notice the bass sounds massive. I love it. Okay, so let's take care of the pads because right now, you know, it sounds like crap. So I'm gonna keep this, you know, right here on the 8. I'm gonna keep it right there, and this one I'm gonna keep it in 0, and I'm gonna keep the sawtooth. We're gonna use tooth saws, and then I'm gonna go and move on to the filter, and this is very important. This one, I'm gonna go do some filtering because I want to remove some of the high frequencies. Right? I'm gonna do a little bit of resonance to add a tiny peak. And now, of course, this needs to be kind of a pad. And right now, when the eclipse starts, everything is kind of every time we play something, everything starts right away. So we want to introduce kind of some kind of motion. There we go. I'm gonna do a long decay, and I'm gonna do a long release. Now, since we are playing multiple keys, we can go right here and make it stereo and spread them just a little bit more. We're gonna get a good stereo widening. Now, again, notice that when the chord ends, everything stops. It's because of the release. So if we go up on the release, yeah, we get kind of a transition between chords. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the attack. I just provide that, you know, up motion. Alright, so I can like it. Now I'm gonna go to the modulation section. I'm gonna do an LFO, and I'm gonna go and make it maybe. I'm gonna make it maybe there and see what happens. What's going on with this. I'm gonna use a sine wave. Why not? And what I want to do, I want to add a little bit of motion because right now it's super static. It's like super static. So I'm gonna add the oscillator frequency. We're gonna modulate the frequency. Of course, if you go really up, you start getting that sickness sound, which is maybe what you don't want. But we just want a little bit, you know, just a tiny bit, not too much. And of course, we can go even faster. But I think sometimes it's just too fast. I'm gonna leave it right there with pads. It's just, you know, how I like it. Now, it sounds good, and if we play it in context, this will kind of it doesn't sound too crazy, you know, it sounds correct. Now, one of the things that is happening right now is like the pads are pretty much on top of everything, right? they're on top of everything. So first of all, we just need to add a little bit of side chaining so we can hear the kick a little bit more. And this one will, you know, do the ducking. So now we are including the pads into that vibe. All right, now there's much more we can do, and for now I'm just gonna go and solo the pads. And if I do play, all right, so sounds good. Now I'm gonna go and do some creative stuff. So of course it sounds good, but maybe I would love to do a little bit more. So first I'm gonna go to the effects. I'm gonna just delete everything I have right here, and it's just gonna start over. So I'm gonna go to the chorus, and I'm gonna do a reverb. Why not? You can, you know, maybe even use a delay instead of a chorus, but in this case, you know, I feel this is fine. So I'm gonna do. Notice how much I'm doing. Nothing, just a tiny bit. But I feel like the pads they need to move a little bit to the back. So I'm gonna go and do a reverb. If I do too much, you know, it's kind of atmospheric, so I don't want that. I just want it to move it to the back. Just a tiny bit. Now the next thing I want to do is to add a little bit of motion to this path, because when everything starts with a filter, everything else is just super static. So I'm gonna go and do something creative. I'm gonna go and find the noise. Just so we're gonna use some noise. Notice, of course, if I go all up on the noise, we get that, which is maybe what we don't want. But what I want to do, I want to maybe do a ramp up on the noise. I'm gonna go right there and do it maybe 100%, and it starts as nothing. Something like that. Of course, you can go right here and make it super fast. But in this case, I want this to the length. I mean, I want on every key, you know, on every chord we play and we sustain, I want that duration. And again, this is just to create a little bit of something else than just the chords right here. Then I'm gonna go, and since we are using a chorus, what I want to do is that whenever the chord plays, I want to do the same thing with the wet and the dry. So, you know, again, it's just a creative decision. So I'm gonna go and find the effects right here, and we notice that we only get the chorus dry and wet. So I'm gonna go down on the chorus. So we're gonna do pretty much the same modulation, right? We're gonna go up at some point, and then we're gonna go down. So I'm gonna go and create a breakpoint right there. Now notice that nothing is happening, and it's because we need to provide some value. And notice again, it's 1 bar, so I want 2 bars as duration. Let me start again. I'm gonna go stop everything, and then play it. Much better, right? Maybe the noise is just a bit too much. I'm gonna do it there. We can even do it here if you wanted to. Right. Super cool. So of course, in context, now I feel like the pads, they need a little bit more release. There we go. Now notice that the pads right now are in the back, not so much in the front, and we can hear the bass as well. So that's something that you need to always be aware of. Okay. So I'm gonna go to the pads and I'm gonna do something else, because I really want to remove the frequencies, the low frequencies of the pad, so we can, not cover the bass. So I'm just gonna do a tiny, simple, dumb EQ, and I'm gonna go and put it right here. Let me just stop the sound for now. What I want to do, I want to cut the low frequency. So I'm gonna go there, and I'm just gonna cut. Maybe 24 is a little bit too aggressive for this, so I'm just gonna do something like that. Not too aggressive. And notice we have a sweep right here in this area. So I'm gonna go and boost it, because I like that. now notice that we hear mostly this part of the pad, which is something I like. All right, so of course, we need to go to the next sound. So I'm gonna go right there. I'm gonna play it, and it's just an ARP. Now, even though I love this, the OB-X, if I wanted to use an ARP, what to create an ARP sound, I would go for a Juno in this, this style of music at least. I would go for Juno or maybe an ARP Odyssey or something like that. In this case, it was fun, but I had to find the sound. So I'm gonna go right here. I'm gonna go back to the ARP right there, and then okay, so I'm gonna go. Of course, sounds like crap because it sounds very raw. I'm gonna keep the frequency. I'm gonna keep the detune. I'm not gonna go back to default, and I'm gonna keep the frequency right here. The range. So right now the problem is the envelope. So I'm gonna go, just chop it a little bit more, and I'm gonna go something like this. I'm gonna go to the decay, and I'm gonna go sustain, and I'm gonna go a little bit of release. Now what I want to do as well, I want to provide some release right here. And notice that we start to get a tail. Can you hear the tail? Maybe let me just do a little bit more frequencies. Oh, and I forgot to do this. Much better. Notice the tail. If I go back, very short. Tail. Alright, so I could go to the sustain and make it shorter if I wish. That depends on the track or whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, so what we could do, we could go and do a little bit of spreading with the pan. Notice if I go crazy, nothing happens. Maybe we can go to stereo. Maybe it's too much. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep do the pan. Not changing a lot, but that's fine. We can maybe even go to Unison and see what happens, but I believe again it's just way too much. Sounds cool, but for now I'm just gonna try without Unison. Okay, so what else we can do, because right now it's kind of sounds good, but it needs a lot of work. I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna go and do the 4-pole. Just gonna be a little bit more aggressive, okay? Now we are not doing a lot of modulation right here with the envelope. If I go up, we get much of the high frequencies because we are doing more of the envelope. But instead of that, I'm going to do something I didn't do before, which is enabling the track. So this one, what it will do again, it will listen to the keys we are playing and use that to modulate the frequency. And this of course depends on what we are playing. So now everything is kind of a little bit too bright maybe. So I'm going to go and just back a little bit. And in context, it sounds good. We can still do a little bit of, side chaining, but it's going to be a little bit too much. So I'm going to go back on. All right. And it's starting to sound like a song, right? Now on the advanced tab, we are not going to do much because it's all, this already sounds good. I'm gonna just delete this one because we are not using it, and I'm gonna go to the effects, and on the effects we need to do something because right now it's just kind of a way too raw. And I'm gonna do a little bit of overdrive, a little bit of delay, why not, we are already there. And I'm gonna go to do reverb. The reverb I'm just gonna keep it default. I'm just gonna go up just a tiny bit. Then on the delay I'm gonna go and do something like this. Notice that it's kind of a little bit, I want to say all over the place. Everything is like on the same spot. So we are starting to get, confused. So right here, you can make it ping pong and then just go with 100%. Now, if I go right here, we can check the delay time. So of course, it depends on the time that you're using. This one, what is happening on the ping pong on the left and right is just going to be more noticeable or not. For example, 16 bars, we can hear the ping ponging all over the place, but maybe 1/8 is fine for me. Now, all of this I'm doing right now is just, again, completely up to you, right? And I forgot to show you the MIDI of the pad. Let me just show you the MIDI of the pad. It's just a very simple pad. Right? It's just very simple. And I'm gonna go to the ARP, and it's just, again, just simple ideas. Simple ideas go a long way. Okay, so let me just go back to the ARP. And now, I kind of like it. So this one will sound cool in context. Now, but the thing is that even though I'm boosting the volume, I need a little bit more of something else. So I'm gonna go back, go right here, do a little bit of reverb, but I'm gonna go and do an overdrive. And this one will just kind of rise the volume right away. And I'm gonna go and try to level it. Let me do a little bit more. Okay, so now in context, we can hear the ARP a little bit more. So I'm gonna need to lower the volume. Right, so that's it. Maybe you can do some bit crush right here if you wish. Something like that. And maybe it's just gonna crush it. Right? It just gives you something else. In this case, I like the overdrive a little bit more. Alright, so we are done with this. Okay, so with the ARP, we have the kind of the same problem we had with the pads. I'm going to do a little bit of EQing. So I'm going to go and do some play. And remember, notice all the low frequencies that are right here. We don't need all of this because the bass and the kick and part of the snare, everything is going to be there. We just don't need it. I'm just going to go and chop it. Same thing as this. I don't need all of this. But what I do need is some presence. So I'm going to go to the 3K, all over 3, 4, 5, even 7K. That's going to add presence. If I turn it off, notice that everything goes a bit darker. Darker, brighter. I'm going to go to the ARP. And now this is going to stand out just a little bit more without, covering everything else. Maybe the snare is just a bit too loud. Okay, so now I'm gonna go and take care of the amp. So this is going to be a sound that will kind of stay in the background. So I'm gonna go, and just to show you this again, it's just 2 single notes. That's why I'm doing all of this like this. It's just very simple to replicate. Okay, so I'm gonna go there. Let me just turn it off first. I'm gonna go right here. And we're going to start with this. I'm going to keep it maybe here. And I'm going to go to the frequency and keep it here. And this time I'm going to use the same saw right here. Okay, I'm going to do, and right from the start, when I turn this on, you're going to hear, not this one, this one. That it goes crazy. Okay, we're going to need to do a little bit just to get a different waveform, different sound out of this. Alright, so I'm going to do a little bit of filtering, and that's a lot, but don't worry, we're going to use the envelopes just to move this. And I'm going to do a little bit of attack, decay, not that much sustain, and a little bit of a release. I want to say a little bit, just 50% on the knob. Decay, I'm going to make it short, long sustain, and notice that whenever we change chords, we are not doing a long release, so I'm going to go to release. And even though it sounds good, it sounds, maybe not that good. So I'm going to go and provide a little bit of motion right here. So I'm going to go and make a sync, maybe. Maybe I'm going to go, I don't know, there. And we're going to see how this sounds. We're going to do a little bit of motion, of course. This is too much. Maybe I'm going to go. That's fine. And I'm going to do a little bit. Since we are not using squares, we cannot do pulse width. And right now, I don't want to do the frequency because we're handling this with the decay, with the envelope. But it sounds maybe too much with the attack. Alright, so I kind of like it. Now, of course, it still sounds like crap. So I'm going to go to stereo, and I'm going to do the spread. Okay. So remember that all of this needs to be in the background, right? I don't want it in the front. This is just something that's gonna stay in the background. And for now, it sounds good, but it's very dull. Very, very dull. So maybe if I change the detune, we're gonna get a different feel. Maybe I'm doing too much of the mod. Alright, so I'm gonna leave it right there. Maybe let me just do. I like that desynchronization because we get more movement out of the sound. Okay, let's see what happens because right now, again, everything's super dull. So I'm gonna go to advanced and let's see what we can do. I want to add motion, so this is the place to go if we want to add something motion. We want to add motion. So I'm gonna go to the filter frequency right here, and I'm gonna go and move up every time that this hits. But I don't want to do it with an LFO because the LFO is just gonna, go up and down, and I don't want that motion. I just want a tiny movement. So I'm gonna go there. And I'm gonna go and then just maybe bring it down whenever we reach half and make it not linear. And what I want to do, notice that as I go up, and I'm gonna do 2 bars. That's the motion I want. Every time that the notes are playing, the clip starts or the chord starts, we have a little bit of modulation and then everything stays the same. So I could do the same trick with the filter resonance, right? So I'm gonna go right here. I'm gonna do, I don't know, something like 100% for now. And I'm gonna go right here and just make the same thing for now. I'm gonna go, and not that much. Let me just turn this off so we can hear just the resonance. Right, so the problem right now is we have 2 bars. Okay, so we can hear the resonance. It's not a lot, but there we go. I'm gonna go and do the filter frequency, but I feel like it's too much. It's too much. So I'm gonna go and just go down on this one. I like it, a little bit more. Maybe we can, let me just go here. I'm gonna go there and maybe move this and see what happens if I just do the filter a little bit earlier. Okay, I like it a little bit more. Now, it sounds like crap right now because we have no effects. There's no depth. And this is something that should be in the background. So, I'm gonna do a little bit of chorus and a little bit of reverb. And I like chorus and then the reverb. So I'm gonna do, and notice that right now when I do this, the sound is gonna completely change. Much different. And if we do a little bit of reverb, since this is going to be in the background, we are kind of allowed to use much reverb. Okay, so maybe I'm gonna tone this down. Alright, so I kind of like it. Notice that this makes it bigger. I'm gonna like it again as well because this is again in the background. Maybe a little bit more coarse. Alright, so now remember that this needs to be in the background. So I'm gonna go and play it with a track. And the only thing I want to hear is that peak we are doing right here. That's what is happening. We are getting that peak. I want to do a little bit more, reverb. And maybe I could use a Valhalla reverb instead of this one, but, Okay, so right now we are getting that peak, but I still want to go down this one. And notice that we hear that sweep. That's the only thing we want. We don't need much from this. This needs to be in the background. We still need to add that motion with the kickstart. There we go. Sometimes when you build sounds, you hear this and it's like, it's just sounds all over the place. It's maybe too aggressive. But when you always need to do your sounds, you need to create sounds in the context of what you want to do, because if on the mix, this sits very well. Now again, we have the same problem than before. We need to cut some of the low frequencies. Notice that we don't need all of this, because what we want, the meat for us, is going to be on this part, on this sweep. So I'm going to go and just cut it. Maybe I'm doing, you know, just too aggressive. And I'm going to cut a little bit of this as well, but that's fine. And I'm going to go and just find the sweep. So it's right here. So I'm going to do a tiny boost. I'm going to go there. Much better, right? So I'm going to go and do play. Maybe a little bit more volume. Right. Another thing we can do, I'm not going to do it, but maybe whenever this starts, we can do a panning from left and right and then just go to center and start again when we do this. So that could be a nice thing to do. But you know, sounds like a track. And we just use a single plugin. So imagine what you can do when you, of course, use many plugins. So okay, so that's it. We made a bass, a pad, an ARP, and an ambient kind of a. I wouldn't say this is ambient. Maybe this should be a different name. So, but that's it. This is what we did. You know, we just created some sounds out of pretty much nothing. And I'm gonna do another video of this. Maybe it's gonna come out tomorrow, maybe with a different clips right here. But I'm gonna put all the patches on the Patreon. So if you of course go and do support the channel on Patreon, you get all the patches. And I'm gonna of course create like 50 or 60 patches, so you can download the patches. Okay, so that's it. Hopefully you have fun. You know, you did a little bit of practicing with the OB-XA V. I think it's a fantastic synth. I love it for bass, for pads, and this one. Not so much for this one, even though it sounds very cool. I would really go for this one just for bass and pads. Why not? Okay, so hopefully you found this useful, and see you on the next one.